a couple of minutes. And in fact, when the red light on the on-air sign goes on is when I will call the meeting to order and suggest that those who would like a seat, if there's one available, go ahead and find one.
Who is Dad? He's in the email.
I will go ahead and call the April 20th City Council regular meeting to order and ask those in the audience who would like to join myself and the council in the Pledge of Allegiance to please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening we have several items under special business. The first is Agenda Bill 6956, the Ruth Keys Environmental Award and Community Environmental Award. By way of introduction, the Ruth Keys Environmental Award honors the lasting legacy of longtime Issaquah resident Ruth Keys. She was a teacher, mentor, and a role model for those committed to pursuing the vision of a sustainable Issaquah. The namesake award recognizes the efforts of exemplary individuals which are noted for the significance and durability of their contributions within the Issaquah community. The 2015 award will be presented this evening to former Mayor Ava Freisinger. And so, Ava? This award is our community's most prestigious honor for environmental advocacies. Ava was Issaquah's longest-serving mayor. She held the office for 16 years, from 1998 through 2013. Ava is president of the Friends of the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery, or FISH. She was one of the original members of FISH in 1994. Under her leadership, FISH stepped in to save the salmon in the classroom program after state budget cuts threatened to end the program. Ava was a leader in the effort to save the lake's Sammamish kokanee salmon from extinction. In addition, she is a Mountain to Sounds Greenway Trust Board member and a past board member of WIRA 8. When she served as mayor, the creation of Issaquah Highlands and Talus set the standard in our region for balancing the demands of environmental and economic interests. Ava led the city in a long, complicated effort to successfully preserve more than 140 acres of Tiger Mountain Forest at Park Point. She also spearheaded the creation of the Central Issaquah Plan Task Force, a community effort to envision our community's 30-year growth blueprint. So it's a great pleasure that this evening we recognize Mayor Ava Freisinger with this award. And Ava, if you could come forward, please. Here is a certificate for the Ruth Keys Environmental Award for a Sustainable Community, signed by myself and Council President Paul Winterstein this date. In addition to a certificate, Here is a monetary appreciation for your long and special service to the environment. And this beautiful, it's not a plaque, but it's a birdhouse, I guess. This wonderful piece of art is something that every time you look at, Ava, I hope you will remember not only this evening, but I hope you remember all of the wonderful things that you have done for the environment, the city of Issaquah, and the Mountains to Sound Greenway. So again, thank you very, very much for
Thank you.
that. And Bill, if she needs a hand, can you take? You want the check, don't you? And Ava, would you like to say a few words this evening?
A very few. Foremost of which is thank you to everyone. I am humbled by this. I remember Ruth Keyes talking about the importance of delineating the lower Issaquah Valley aquifer way back in the 1980s and being extremely concerned about its capacity and about the quality of the water that would be coming up out of the aquifer. She was concerned about the whole Issaquah Creek Valley, and so she was instrumental in telling city staff ways in which we could protect, acquire, protect, and restore creekside habitat, or riparian habitat as it's more technically known. And she did all of those things with passion and with commitment, and was a ferocious adversary, if you happen to cross her, and just a very good person, and I feel humbled to have been in her presence. And I thank the whole community, because without this community's vision, these things wouldn't have happened. We could have had champions in some other community that wasn't as committed to the environment as Issaquah is, and that's the citizens and the council members and mayors and staff. So thank you, everyone.
The next award is the Community Environmental Award, which builds upon the vision of the Ruth Keyes Environmental Award to recognize outstanding achievements by individuals, groups, and organizations within the community. These achievements are noteworthy and important in their impact and benefits to the community, but may reflect efforts which may be smaller in scale or vision, shorter in duration, or more of a localized impact. The 2015 award will be presented to the Issaquah Highlands Community Association. And so, I am proud to honor Issaquah Highlands Community Association with our first Community Environmental Award. This new award recognizes outstanding achievements by individuals, groups, and organizations to protect our environmental resources. Since its creation in 1996, the Issaquah Highlands Community Association has been dedicated to environmental excellence. It exemplifies its Living Green tagline every day with sustainable landscape management, wetland restoration, and innovative practices, such as using goats to control weeds and invasive plants. And so with that, I would ask Sarah Hoy to come forward, please. And Jim Young, the president of the Issaquah Highlands Community Association. So for all of the wonderful things, an example that you have set up in the Issaquah Highlands, and for the kind of sustainable community that, and all of the wonderful things that you're doing to preserve our environment, I present the Community Environmental Award to your organization this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you've done a great job. There is no monetary reward to go with that, but there is another beautiful piece of art that I hope you proudly display in your offices or someplace where the public can see your wonderful commitment to your community, the environment, and the city of Issaquah. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sarah, thank you very much. And thanks to all from the Issaquah Highlands Community Association who took the time this evening to come down and to be a part of this special presentation. So, thank you very much. Our next item under special business is Agenda Bill 6957, an Earth Day proclamation, and I will now present that. Or read it. Who am I presenting this to this evening? Certainly are the citizens of Issaquah. So, this is a proclamation, whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, environmental degradation, food and water shortages, and economic struggles. And whereas the city of Issaquah recognizes that decisions and actions of the present affect future generations and the long-term sustainability of our community. And whereas local communities can lead the way in taking such steps to protect and preserve our natural environment and resources by encouraging energy and water conservation, waste reduction, and environmentally sound land use and transportation choices with sustainable practices. And whereas the city of Issaquah is a regional leader in promoting and using sustainable practices in its businesses, residences, and city operations, and whereas there are compelling aesthetic, economic, and social reasons for state and local governments to initiate and support their citizens in sustainable community practices, and whereas Earth Day offers citizens an opportunity to make a personal commitment to practices that are vital in protecting the quality of human and other life for generations to come. Now, therefore, I, Fred Butler, Mayor of the City of Issaquah, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2015 to be Earth Day in the City of Issaquah and urge all citizens to celebrate this special observance and further to pledge to take action together so that we can contribute to a healthy environment and make Issaquah an even greater place to live, work, play, learn, and visit. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and seal of the City of Issaquah this 20th day of April 2015. That certainly does. Who was I going to give that to?
We have the Office of Sustainability here this evening to accept that.
With the office, with David Fujimoto, the Director of the Office of Sustainability, come forward, and Megan. Thank you for all you do, because a lot of what I talked about in the whereases are things that are done on a daily basis in our community under the auspices of David and Megan, please accept that on our behalf. David, thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
And Megan, thank you. David, is there anything you want to say? And the final item of special business, Agenda Bill 6999, Correctional Officers and Employees Week Proclamation. And, okay, Mike Zuppi down in well, sometimes I refer to it as the hotel, but in our jail in the basement of City Hall, Commander Bob Porter and our Chief of Police, Scott Beerbaum. Whereas National Correctional Officers and Employees Week was first proclaimed on May 5th, 1984 by President Ronald Reagan when he signed Proclamation 5187, creating National Correction Officers Week to recognize the men and women who work in jails, prisons, and community corrections across the country. And whereas National Correction Officers and Employees Week became the official name the first week in May, when in 1986 the U.S. Senate officially changed the name from National Corrections Officer Week. And whereas National Corrections Officers and Employees Week has been designated as the week of May 3rd through May 9th, 2015 by the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And whereas National Correction Officers and Employees Week honors the work of correctional officers and correctional personnel for their service with honor, respect, and integrity, and whereas National Correction Officers and Employees Week raises the awareness of the duties, hazards, and sacrifices made by correctional employees, and whereas National Correction Officers and Employees Week in the city of Issaquah recognizes employees of the jail for their role in safeguarding the citizens of Issaquah by providing safe, secure, and humane incarceration of offenders within their custody. Now, therefore, I, Fred Butler, Mayor of the City of Issaquah, do hereby proclaim the week of May 3rd through May 9th, 2015 to be National Correction Officers and Employees Week in the City of Issaquah, and I encourage all citizens to pay tribute to the correctional employees of the jail for the vital public service that they provide, in witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and seal of the City of Issaquah this 20th day of April 2015. So, Mike. And so, thank you very, very much for the important service that you provide. Many of you might not know that when celebrities in the Puget Sound region have an opportunity to pay for their incarceration, the jail of choice that they pick typically is the City of Issaquah. And when I talk to folks who are leaving the jail and ask them the question, how did they treat you downstairs? I have never received a negative response, and the only thing they say, they treated me great, but I never want to come back here again. So, Mike, again,
All right, thank you.
Thank you very, very much for the great job that you and your team did. And so before we move to audience comments, we are honored this evening to have Representative Chad Bagadance of the 5th Legislative District here to provide a brief update on the happenings and what is going on in Issaquah. Representative Magadance, welcome.
So for the record, Chad Magendance, State Rep in the 5th, 15520 169th Street, Issaquah, Washington. And I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today and talk a little about what's going on in Olympia, because this is our last week before Sine Die, the Latin word for the last day. And it's been a long session, 105 days, which is our long session, which is for our budget years. And everything's kind of coming together in this last week. So I wanted to kind of summarize where we are and how likely we are to get out on time. Because, as you know, there's lots of things in the works, a transportation package, we've got a McCleary deal, of course we got the natural budgeting process that we do every 2 years because we have a biennial budget. The budgets came out 2 weeks ago. The House Democratic budget was the first one out. Traditionally, we alternate back and forth. And the Senate version came out 2 days later. Substantially similar in many ways. The exceptions were the House Democratic budget had a new capital gains tax, and it collects $1.5 billion in new revenue to put a little bit more money into education and to reduce the number of other areas that were not allowed to grow quite as much in the Senate version. The Senate version is a revenue neutral budget, so it has no new taxes. But both budgets, let's see, the House budget puts $1.4 billion of new money for McCleary, for the state Supreme Court ruling on the schools into K-12. The Senate version puts 1.3. They're about an 18% increase in K-12 funding, both these budgets. And 18% is the highest level in 25 years. So even without getting into the McCleary compensation and levy reform bills that are in the works right now, we've got a pretty substantial investment in K-12 to try to get ahead of a lot of the McCleary issues and make sure that we're in good standing with the Supreme Court. The follow-on bills, though, are dealing with the last piece of McCleary that has yet to be addressed. As many of you know, we've already done quite a bit of work to create a new prototypical schools model. That was done with House Bill 2776. This basically creates a model school which we use to model the funding that we send out to all the schools. We have investments in K-3 class size reductions, $1.5 billion in reducing class sizes in kindergarten through third grade by 2018. We have all-day kindergarten that's being rolled out. Actually, we're about halfway through the rollout of that. And then other areas like transportation and materials and operating costs, supplies, things like that, that are part of the progression that we've been doing up until now. And all of those are fully funded in both budgets going forward. The piece that's been missing, quite frankly, because it's hard, is compensation and levy reform. Now, you may have heard about the levy swap. This is a fairly old idea. Senator Zarelli first came up with it probably about 10 years ago. And Rob McKenna mentioned it during his campaign. Ross Hunter's been basically taking this idea on the road. And the idea is that if you look historically, you go back to the last major reform with education funding, which was in 1978, the Duran II decision. We took a whole bunch of money that was being raised locally, and then we moved that to the state because it's the state's constitutional paramount duty to provide for the education of all of our children within our borders. And so we were basically not following our constitutional duty back in 1978, and we're not doing it today either. And so what they did back then is they created this new common schools levy, which was a property tax to fund schools at the state level. And you saw a very dramatic shift between the portion of money going to schools that was coming from local sources to the state. And then, over the past 30 years, you've seen this crop back up again. And it's been pretty insidious. And part of the problem is that for every dollar of new spending that we've been putting into schools, we've been putting $2 of non-education spending in. And so it's basically divested the state of education funding. Traditionally, we've been about 50% of the general budget. It got down to 42%. In the last budget, we put $4 of new money into education spending for every $1 in non-education spending. And this budget keeps that up. So this new budget has 47% of money from the general fund being spent on K-12 education, which is almost getting up to historic levels. So we've made some big progress there. There are 3 levy compensation bills in play right now. The first is from the House Democratic Caucus, And this basically creates a new council to re-examine how we should do this. Frankly, we've had a lot of these councils and committees. We've had the Washington Learns, the Basic Education Funding Task Force, the Full Funding Joint Task Force, the Compensation Technical Working Group, the Local Levy Technical Working Group. A lot of us feel that we've studied this to death. It's time to commit and follow the court's orders. And so there's a little bit of pushback on going back to another council, another committee to re-examine this problem, because we feel we have a pretty good handle on it at this point. The Senate Democratic version and the Senate Republican version are substantially similar in their spending, and that they both have local labor market adjustments to address the fact that it costs more to live in Seattle, in the Seattle area, than it does in eastern Washington. And a lot of what's been relied on from local levies has been this local labor market adjustment. In order to have competitive salaries in the Puget Sound area, you have to supplement what the state gives you, because we have a flat salary schedule for the entire state. And when the median household income in King County is $68,000 a year, and in Whitman County it's $32,000 a year, there are some pretty significant mismatches there. And so both recognize the fact that we have to be able to provide a competitive wage at each school's location, and that will vary based on the cost of living and the amenities in that location. It also raises overall teacher salaries and staff salaries, compresses them a little bit, because we've seen that there's become more divergence. A lot of folks on the top of the pay scale are getting paid more, and because there's a statutory requirement that the average can't change, the teachers coming in at the low end have been getting lower starting salaries. And so you're seeing a little bit of compression of the salary schedule in that process too. Both have that. The difference really, and both will reduce the levy lids that are available for the school districts considerably. Right now, the Issaquah area pays about $4 per $1,000 assessed value in operational levies. And this will reduce this down to $1.25 in the Senate Republican version and $1 in the Senate Democrat version. And so you're going to see a reduction of local levies all over the state. Where it's going to be most pronounced is where people have the lowest assessed value and therefore the highest mill rates. There are some areas that are charging $8 up to $20 per $1,000 of assessed value, because their assessed values are so low that in order to raise that money for their children, they need to really, increase the pain level considerably. So both have a flat levy lid that's based on mill rate, and the idea is to equalize the pain so that areas that have low assessed values aren't taking a disproportional amount to fund their local schools. The differences on how they pay for it are more dramatic, though. The Senate Democratic version raises $1.2 billion per year in a capital gains tax. And the Senate Republican version raises the common schools levy. As many of you realize, Initiative 747 set a cap on property tax growth to be inflation or 1%, whichever is lower. And so the statutory limit, which we were at in the 90s, was $3.60 per $1,000 assessed value. But that's been ratcheted down because of Initiative 747 to less than $2 per thousand now. And so what the Senate version does is restore some of that. Not all of it, doesn't go to the full 360, but about $1.50 in revenue. So it's restoring some of what's been lost with 747. Now, not as much at the city level, but counties in particular have been hammered by this property tax reduction over the years, because they're more dependent on property taxes even than the state, and they've lost a substantial amount of revenue because they haven't been keeping up with inflation. So this will address that. Hopefully it'll address the problem for the counties as well. We need to reconcile these three plans by Sunday. That's sine die. And so that's aggressive. We're hoping we can get it on time. A lot of it's going to depend how the general atmosphere is for the budget negotiations and how well people can work together. But we're driving through, hoping to make that date. On the transportation side, you are seeing some differences. The Senate version had the shoulder driving option that Senator Mullet fought for. It's $124 million. We've been working to get the price tag on that down, because if you look at the median cost per highway lane mile, it's actually $1.6 million per mile. And so we expected that to come in at less than $16 to $20 million, and $124 million is considerably higher than we expected. We're actually making some progress on that, and you probably see that in your packets this week. And the 1890 intersection over in Snoqualmie is on the House version. And so that actually is a very substantial investment for the 5th District, as well as freight mobility for the state at large. And then, of course, the Front Street I-90 intersection design work is also in there. So we're making some progress, and hopefully that will move off the floor shortly, too.
Great. Well, Chad, thank you very, very much for that status report. Good luck. There's a lot of work to be done in a relatively short period of time, and I hope you make it, but if not, it will probably take a few more weeks after the close. So
We'll get it done.
thanks for coming and providing that update
Thank you,
for us this evening. So now we will move to audience comments. Citizen comments are an important part of the public process. We take them seriously and factor them into the decisions that we make. Anyone from the public who wishes to comment will have an opportunity to do so. When recognized, please come to the lectern. State your name, address, and relationship to the city. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And if you have written comments, please submit those to the clerk. As a reminder, personal attacks, obscene language, derogatory remarks, and disruptive behavior will not be permitted. If a speaker is out of order, I will direct the speaker to return to his or her seat. If the speaker does not comply, I will ask him or her to leave the council chambers. Again, citizen comments, written and verbal, are an important aspect of the public process. And with that, I would ask the clerk, has anyone signed up to speak this evening?
Yes, first on the list, Friends of Lake Friends of Lake Sammamish State Park, Joe and Janet. Did you wish to speak?
Good evening. My name's Joe Forkner. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for Friends of Lake Sammamish State Park, and I'm here this evening to introduce the new Executive Director for Friends of Lake Sammamish State Park, Janet Farnes.
It's great to be here. I've looked forward to meeting all of you. Again, my name is Janet Farnes, and I live within biking distance of the park, which is really fun, a little bit in Bellevue. Like Lake Sammamish State Park, I've been in unincorporated King County for a long time, but now I'm in Bellevue, the parks in Issaquah. But it's great to be part of something that's so easy to love, and we care for what we love. And so part of our goals as we get started, I'm in an immersion process, a couple, 2-3 weeks new in what the Friends organization and relationship with the city of Issaquah and also the state parks is all about. But part of it is to get people out to experience it, experience that incredible jewel that we have in this growing urbanized area. Who would think we'd talk about Issaquah as being an urban area, but you know how dense it is getting to be. So our goal is to provide some interesting events, and coming up this next week, I'm sure all of you have gotten in my email an event. Every day is Earth Day out there, but of course this week we are celebrating a special opportunity to do some kayaking, and I know I'm going to see some of you out there, and some ranger-led just a walking tour as well. So if you haven't RSVP'd, it's not too late. We can still hear from you by tomorrow, and we'd love to meet you more personally and chat about this jewel and what your vision and ideas might be and how meaningful it can be with our community. Hearing from the legislator was interesting because we've been pretty active in that budget too. We're asking for some funds for the new playground, which we hope will be the best in state, draw some more folks there. Also the docks, we're working on refurbishing those docks that are not just for motorboats, but also for paddlers and kayakers and sailors, et cetera. So there's a lot of work to be done, but it's a great place. We're inspired by it, and I really look forward to working with all of you and also other great organizations, Fish and others here in and around Issaquah in this area. So if if you have any questions or need to get a hold of me, I'm findable. And again, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Janet, thank you very, very much, and welcome to your new position and to that gem that is a part of Issaquah.
You bet. Thank you.
David Bush.
David Bush. I live at 985 Mountain Park Boulevard in Issaquah, and I'm also the chair of the Civil Service Commission. We have an agenda bill before you tonight, Agenda Bill 6990, and I just wanted to make two comments on the heading and the summary that were put together for the agenda bill. The agenda bill indicates that it's coming to you from the Human Resources Department. The Issaquah Civil Service Commission is an independent quasi-judicial body who hires a secretary examiner, and that secretary examiner has to be an independent employee of the Civil Service Commission. Currently, our secretary examiner is the head of the Human Resources Department, and it's easy to find that confusion. But when she is wearing the hat of the Secretary Examiner of the Civil Service Commission, she is independent of the city administration or staff. And I just wanted to make that point. The second point is in the summary, it indicates that the Civil Service Commission has existed since 1980. And I personally know someone a former Civil Service Commissioner who served prior to 1980 as well as later. The Civil Service Commission was originated by state code in 1937. And at that time, the city of Issaquah had a fire department that fell under RCW 4108 and formed a Civil Service Commission at that time. We've had a Civil Service Commission continuously since that time. Later on, the RCW 4112 picked up the police department, and when we developed the police department for the city, that fell under the purview of the Issaquah Civil Service Commission. The Issaquah Municipal Code 2.68, which we're hoping to revise tonight, was adopted in 1980, but it was replacing an ordinance that was previous to that. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
David, thank you very, very much.
It's last on my list. Oh,
There's
I'm
no one
sorry.
else who is there someone else?
There is. David Johnson.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is David Johnson. I live at 4244 182nd Avenue Southeast in Issaquah. And I'm here tonight because I found out 4 weeks ago that Eastside Fire and Rescue has closed Station 75, which is was an all-volunteer station that served the South Cove community. And I had no idea that the station was being closed. And so I was very much surprised, and I went and was looking for reasons. And so I went to the Eastside Fire and Rescue website and looked at their minutes of their meetings. And on December 11th, they voted to close the station. The only thing they mention in the minutes is that there was a 99-year lease with the school district, which owns the property, and the lease was half expired, and there'd been a $1 a year charge for the lease. So certainly that wasn't the reason the station was closed. Anyway, the reason I think it's important is that the South Cove area over here has some of the worst response times in the city of Issaquah. And because of our location, we're quite some distance away from Station 72, which is at 1575 Northwest Maple Street. And so it's a lengthy travel time for the Station 72 to reach the South Cove community. And of course, the response time is a combination of the alarm time when someone calls, and then the station is dispatched, and then the travel time for the station to actually travel to the call. And so the Station 75 was in an excellent location. It was an all-volunteer station, and of course, with all of the limitations that implies, but it was a resource that we had, and now we no longer have it, and we don't know why. So we're a little unhappy about it being closed with no notice and no discussion and no real reason. If it was a budget-saving thing, I can't believe the budget for that station amounted to more than 2 solar panels on Station 72. So I couldn't believe it would be a budget reason. But it did provide some fire response resources in that part of the city that we no longer have. And so I guess I would ask in the future that maybe you be a little bit more inclusive with the community and talk about these things before they're done so we have a chance to provide some input. And then to improve the response time, there are 2 Bellevue stations that are actually closer than Station 72, and I would ask the city to explore some sort of arrangement with those stations to respond to addresses in the city that are some distance away from Station 72. I did talk with the deputy chief at the Eastside Fire and Rescue, who assured me that they already respond. But I called the City of Bellevue Fire Department and spoke with them, and they said no, they don't respond to any address in the city until it's a mutual aid response. In other words, until there's a unit not available in the city. So if Station 72 were not available to respond, then it's possible that Station 2 or Station 8 would respond, but otherwise not. And so I would ask that the city explore some sort of arrangement to have those stations automatically respond for certain addresses within the city where the location isn't as good for Station 72. Thank you very much.
David, thank you. There's no one else who has signed up to speak. Is there anyone in the audience desiring to speak this evening? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ken Eastman. I live at 2473 Northwest Stony Creek Drive in Issaquah. I'm a resident of the Tallis community, and I wanted to talk about potential development of parcels that are adjacent to our community of Tallis. I spoke about 6 months ago to the council about the annexation of the 49.2 acres that are on the northwest corner of Tallis. And at the time, we had had a summer of extensive noise and dust and mud from the development activity that's going on currently with parcels 7, 8, and 9. This fair weather this last week has got construction started again. The trucks are running up and down the hill. The street sweeper is incessant. And I bring that out not to contest the decisions made on 7, 8, and 9, but just to take notice of the fact that development does have impact to our community. Those trucks run up and down through the center of our community. It appears as though there is surveying tape on the north boundary of Tallis in the Bergsma Estate parcel. That would be 3 adjacent parcels when you consider the 49.2 acres, the Bergsma Estate, and the Amundsen property, also known as Forest Heights. The point I want to make this evening is that all 3 of those parcels have the potential to be developed through the center of our community. There's no good way up to the top of that hill, therefore development may have to come right through the center of Tallis, up Tallis Drive, Shangri-La Way, and through the adjacent parcels of the Trieris neighborhood. I would like to ask that the City Council, the Mayor, get engaged, understand what that development plan is, and please act as our advocate. There are thousands of people that live up there when those trucks and the noise and the dust go through our community. We're personally impacted. I would ask that you look at this potential development activity if and when it comes, and how it benefits the community, the public good, and most importantly, how it impacts the residents of the Tallis community. Thank you for your time.
Ken, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience desiring to speak this evening? Anyone else desiring to speak? third and final call, anyone desiring to speak this evening. With that, then, audience comments are closed, and we will now move to committee and regional reports, beginning with Councilmember Milligan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to catch you up on a momentous occasion at the King Conservation District, and I want to thank my fellow council member Polly for the work that she did in 2014 on their work plan. On April 15th, the advisory committee meeting last week, who meet quarterly, they approved the work plans that follow the outline that your group did, which identified the rural and urban forestry, rural and urban agriculture, regional food systems, shoreline and riparian habitat, and landowner incentives as being the priorities of the King Conservation District. This group got into the details of it and developed the policies that now will be sent to the Board of Supervisors and passed by them. This also includes a municipal grant program and some early action programs, which are pretty exciting. There's a lot of energy around this, and it does serve many great needs regionally and impact us a great deal. So it was exciting, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Polly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The April 2nd Land and Shore Committee was canceled. Our next meeting will be Thursday, May 7th at 5:30 in council chambers. Councilmember Martz will be replacing Councilmember Barber for that meeting, and the agenda has yet to have been set. The Growth Management Policy Board did not meet in April. Its next meeting will be May 7th at the PSRC offices in Seattle. I haven't seen an agenda yet. But just if it's a matter of interest, the PSRC General Assembly will be on April 30th from 11:30 to 1:30 at the Washington State Convention Center. And the Sound Transit Board of Directors will be making a special presentation at that meeting. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Martz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Services and Safety Committee met on Tuesday, April 14th in the Eagle Room. We had two items on the agenda. The first was Agenda Bill 6975, skate park project that is on the regular agenda for this evening. And the second was a discussion on the sort of parks and services and public safety aspects of the 2015 comprehensive plan and zoning map amendments. And that was an interesting and helpful conversation that we received. That concludes my report.
Thank you. I would point out that Councilmember Scher is not here this evening. He is excused. And then call on Councilmember Barber.
No report.
And Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. East Side Fire and Rescue Board of Directors met on April 9th. There were a couple of items that were referred to committee. Tomorrow, the Finance Committee will meet, and the committee is going to begin reviewing the agency's financial policies and making recommendations back to the full board regarding any policies that may need to be addressed, including gaps and revisions as well. That's tomorrow, 4 p.m. at the headquarters on Newport Way. And then the board referred the request for qualifications for recruiting a new fire chief to the Personnel Committee to be completed. And that committee meets in early May. I don't have the exact date. You know when that is?
I can find it. It is 6:30 on Wednesday, May 6th.
Thank you.
Sorry, 4:30 on Wednesday. No, actually, they moved it. Different time. Sorry. It's normally at 4, and it will be at 6:30 instead. That's a different time.
Okay, thank you.
What time will that be?
6 o'clock.
And the date?
6:30, sorry.
Thank you.
May 6th. I'm
Six-
all over the place on this one tonight.
So perhaps 6:30 on May 6th, but we're not.
Perhaps 6:30 on May 6th.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
The full board meets the second Thursday of each month. I don't have that date in front of me, but it will be the second Thursday of May, 4 o'clock at headquarters on Newport Way. I do not have an agenda yet. Thank you.
Awards banquet.
Oh, yes, the awards banquet is tomorrow night. I believe it's at 7 p.m. I will be attending
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 7 p.m. That is a fact.
That's a fact. That's a
Thank
fact.
you. That's my crazy report.
Thank you for that report. Council President Winterstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here's another fact. Josh is not here, so in his absence, I'm going to report on the infrastructure meeting that we're going to have tomorrow, and that's definitely tomorrow at 5:30 in the Pickering Room. And there's quite a bit of activity. We're going to get an update on the food packaging ordinance. That'll be for information purposes only. And then an item on tonight's consent agenda regarding the Corps of Engineer Memorandum of Agreement for the Anderson House. We'll be taking action on that item. We'll be getting updates on the 2015 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Map amendments. We'll get an update on our plan for the Mobility Master Plan. We'll get an update on the Transportation Improvement Plan. That we'll record that because I know everybody will want to hear that one. And then there's three action items, two of them regarding the franchise agreement with Level 3 Communications, one dealing with granting non-exclusive franchise, and a second one, indirect change of control. And then finally, the last item on the agenda will be the complete street sidewalk extension on Newport Way from 12th Avenue Northwest to Maple Street. You'll recall that that item was one that was at committee, came back here, and we sent it back to committee. So we're getting an update on that. So that's the full agenda for tomorrow's Council Infrastructure Committee meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. For the mayor's report, there will not be an executive session this evening. I attended the April 9th Sound Transit Capital Committee meeting. We've received a status report on East Link and also selected the route and station locations for the Linwood Link extension for a recommendation to the full board for final approval this Thursday. The Linwood Link extension would extend light rail from North Gate to Linwood. I attended the April 9th Puget Sound Regional Council Transportation Policy Board meeting. We discussed CTAC's Sustainable Airport Master Plan, which is their long-term blueprint for airport development through 2034. We had a briefing and discussion on the Washington State Usage Charge Assessment, which looks at a number of alternatives for replacing the gas tax with a hope of funding a demonstration project coming out of the current legislative session. And then finally, a new 2015 regional economic forecast. The region is forecasted to maintain growth above national levels. So the economy's doing quite good in the Puget Sound region compared to the rest of the country. I attended a meeting with other Puget Sound Transit Agency representatives on the PSRC Transportation Policy Board to begin to plan a transit summit currently scheduled for June the 11th. The summit would be an expanded discussion involving King County Metro, Sound Transit, Pierce Transit, Community Transit, Kitsap Transit, and the Washington State Ferry System on transit integration. And finally, the city will host its second annual Issaquah Job Fair, which is geared towards job seekers in the age range of 16 to 24. That will be held on Tuesday, April 28th from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Pickering Barn. Over 25 employers will attend to discuss opportunities ranging from retail office and food service. There will be expert resume review as well as many workshops which will be available to job seekers for no cost. For this effort, the city's collaborating with the Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County, Greater Issaquah Chamber of Commerce, the Issaquah School District, and the Issaquah Schools Foundation. So for more information, you can contact ED at issaquahwa.gov or call 425-837-3450. And that concludes the mayor's report. Moving now to the consent calendar, I'd ask if the accounts payable and payroll for April 20th have been reviewed.
Yes.
Thank you. There are 2 items on the consent calendar. I would ask the clerk to read those into the record, please.
Yes, the consent calendar was distributed to council in advance for study, and if authorized, council action will occur by a single motion regarding these 3 items. Seeks approval of account payables and payroll dated April 20th. Item B is AB 6995. It's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Memorandum of Agreement for Anderson House. This seeks referral to the Council Infrastructure Committee. Item C, AB 6990. Amendments to IMC Chapter 2.68 Civil Service System, seeks adoption of an ordinance. If approved, this ordinance will be assigned number 2737. That concludes the reading.
Thank you, Tina. Does any council member desire to withdraw any item on the consent calendar and move it to regular business? Seeing none, Council President Winterstein?
I move that we adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that carries unanimously. Moving now to regular business. Agenda Bill 6975, Skate Park Project. This is coming back to the council from the Services and Safety Committee. Councilmember Martz.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I believe Parks and Recreation Deputy Director Brian Burnson has a set of background information for us ahead of any motion.
Thank you. Hey, Brian, roll on.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having us tonight. Yeah, like Councilmember March said, I'd like to quickly, just for the benefit of everybody here and everybody that may be viewing, quick timeline of sort of where we were and how we got to where we are now, just to sort of recap this process that we've been through, because it's been quite a ride. The development of the new skate park has been a council goal for a number of years prior to the planning for the 2013 park bond measure, and one of the main reasons why the new skate park was included in the preliminary list of park bond items. In June of 2012, EMC Research conducted a community phone survey to determine residents' interest in parks and recreation improvements in preparation for a 2013 park bond. In June of 2013, a preliminary list of park bond items was created, including a new skate park. The mayor appointed a Park Bond Citizens Advisory Committee to review the preliminary park bond items. The Park Bond Citizens Advisory Committee reviewed the EMC Researchers phone survey, public input received through social media, and hosted a public input meeting discussing the preliminary park bond items. The Park Bond Citizens Advisory Committee developed a recommendation of items for the Park Board. This recommendation did not include a skate park. The Park Board reviewed and approved the recommendation of park bond items, recommending them to the mayor. The mayor reviewed and approved the recommended park bond items, recommending them to council. And council approved the items for the 2013 park bond, and this park bond passed overwhelmingly with 77% support in November of 2013. On September 3rd, 2013, in response to citizen input in the skateboarding community, council approved funding for a new skate park with Agenda Bill 6676 for $350,000. On May 19th of 2014, council approved Tibbetts Valley Park as the location for the new skate park. June through July of 2014, 4 skate park citizens advisory committee and 3 public input meetings were held developing a design for a new skate park. The design created was 10,500 square feet with an estimated cost of $500,000. On July 9, 2014, at the skate park design public input meeting, Grindline Skate Park presented an 8,600 square foot design that would fall within the $350,000 price range. Grindline Skate Parks explained that the 8,600 square foot design was developed by scaling down the 10,500 square foot design while maintaining the overall intent of the larger design. On July 10, 2014, at the Skate Park Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, this same information was presented by Grindline. On July 29, 2014, the final estimates for the pricing came in, and the 10,500 square foot design was estimated to be $486,075, while the 8,600 square foot design is estimated to be $363,575. That's for design and build. July through September of 2014, Parks and Recreation staff discussed designs with city administration. The mayor requested an additional $150,000 in his 2015 proposed budget for an enhanced skate park design. On October 16, 2014, at the council budget work session, Parks and Recreation staff shared a PowerPoint presentation on the designs for the new skate park. November 4th, 2014, at the council budget work session, skate park allocation remained at $350,000. Council discussed the new skate park designs with elected officials, Parks and Recreation staff, citizens, Skate Park Citizens Advisory Committee, and the Drug Free Community Coalition members. City Council called on staff to pursue grants and potential community partners to secure additional support for the project, which brings us here tonight with Agenda Bill 6975 for construction of the skate park in 2016 and to seek additional funding opportunities, including a 2015 King County Youth Sports Facility grant. And I believe our move to is going to be discussed a little bit later too. So with that, I'd like to introduce Micah Shapiro with Grindline. He's going to sort of walk you through the two different designs and explain sort of what comes with one and what comes with the other, and just have a real open dialogue with you about, you know, just the nuts and bolts of both designs. So with that, Micah's with Grindline Skate Parks. Because he doesn't talk highly, well, he doesn't brag about himself, but Grindline is one of the premier skate park design build companies in the area, and we're very happy to have them on board with us. So with that, this is Micah.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're right here. What? I'd be happy to. Okay. And there you are.
So you can just give him one of these and one
So you're live on.
that one for me.
Gotcha.
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, council members. As Brian said, I'm the lead designer for Grindline Skate Parks. We're a design build firm that specializes in skateboard parks. So we're based in Seattle, Washington. And I was just going to walk through how we came up with the two different designs, talk about the differences. And with that, get started here. So just to the project goals, design an 8,000 to 10,000 square foot skate park that serves the local community as well as serve as a regional draw. And the skate park will need to integrate with the surrounding park. So this is Tibbetts Valley Park. This is a site you can see right here. It's right across from the transit parking on Newport Way. And that the budget was $350,000 for design and construction. So the concepts were developed, as Brian said, we had 3 community meetings where the community presented input and gave us direction on design, and as well as 3 follow-up citizens advisory committees meetings after each community meeting to basically get their take on things. And from there, so this was the first, the concept, 10,500 square feet. With the site where it is, you know, it's very visible. We wanted to create something that was, you know, really had some aesthetic quality to it, something that really stood out just because of the location. And kind of one of the difference between this location and your last location, which was very kind of tucked away. This one is right there on Newport Way. So, you know, to create something that, you know, as people drove by, they're like, wow, that's really pretty. That's beautiful looking. So you can see using a lot of colored concrete. This is actually, this red here is basically, it's concrete that's stamped and stained to look like brick. So brick banks is a popular skate feature. Incorporating these viewing areas here. Some picnic tables, this grand entrance here, and this fence you see right now is a placeholder, but the idea is that we would replace the chain link fence that's currently there. We would replace that with some type of wrought iron or artistic fence, and there's a possibility for that to be some kind of art piece. So then the smaller concept, you can see it's a similar shape. Many of the features are the same, but everything's been shrunk down a little bit. Kind of remove all the color, simplify this whole viewing area here. Instead of we had the picnic tables and there was 4 viewing benches, there's just 3 along here. The viewing area that was along here is removed to make sure that we have some space for these skate features. And then also just a simple entrance here. And then this would basically be reusing the existing chain link fence that is currently on the site. And so just an aerial view of it. And ignore that this one says 500,000 is actually the smaller concept, but just so you can kind of see the difference in size. And then just to go through the two different budgets. So this is a smaller concept, 8,600 square feet. For the actual skate park itself, it's about 302,000. The non-skate park improvements, as far as the amenities, landscaping, is about 14,400. And then the design costs, which are the same for both projects, or both concepts, is $47,000. So the total for this is $363,000. As I said, we've kind of removed all the color and texture, so just all gray concrete. The brick banks are just a regular bank. There was a couple other smaller features that basically are not in this concept that are in the larger one. Simplified viewing area. The tree plantings that are along here are basically at grade, where the other ones actually have planters around them. Kind of very simple sidewalk entrance. Minimal new fencing. As I said, we'd probably keep as much of this fencing as possible. 3 viewing benches that are along this side right here. And then none of the 2 picnic tables that were over here have been removed. So then this is the larger concept. The skate park improvements, $372,000. The non-skate park improvements are $66,000. And then the design costs, $47,000, same as the other one. So basically more, you can see it's all using colored concrete. As I talked about the texture here with the bricks, these are raised planters, a couple picnic tables, more viewing here, some viewing here, this grand entrance with these large steps for kind of this real visual impact on Newport Way. And just to kind of talk about the differences, so even though one is, it's only a 20% difference in size, there's more to it than just the size of it. Really the color and texture enhance the user experience. You can kind of see the difference here between using the bricks and then using the non-bricks here. The park becomes more of a regional draw, which is what the RFP really requested. The visual presence from the road. And then, one thing that a lot of people requested was, making sure there was places for people to sit and enjoy the park, whether they were there to skate, or whether they were there bringing their child to skate, or whether they were just coming by to view the place. So we wanted to make sure we had that, enough of that. And then really the larger concept, it maximizes and uses the entire site really well. So those are kind of the 2 different concepts and how we got to the 2 different concepts. Both are great skate parks, but the larger concept really, maximizes the site and kind of meets the needs of the RFP more. I think I have one more slide. This was something we were asked about, how do we get our cost estimates? And so these are kind of the last 4 projects that we've done in the area as far as our engineer estimates and then the bids. So we're always pretty conservative on our estimates. So you can see that all of them came in, under bid, under our estimates as far as the bids. Yes.
Can I ask, can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Can you remind me that little thing that looks like a chevron?
This right here?
Yeah, what is that?
So it's called a pole jam, and what it literally is, it's if you ever see like a bollard, that's blocking a driveway, gets pushed over by a car, well, a skater will try to ride up that and shoot off the end of it. And so we do ones for safety. We kind of do these 2-sided ones. You can hit them either way, but also there's not something kind of sticking out that someone could run into and semi-impale themselves on.
So what's a bollard?
A bollard, so like if you have a driveway and they'll put the metal poles in to block the driveway, or sometimes they put them in front of something so you don't run into something, but just a metal pole that sticks out of the ground.
I see. And can you go back in the top view? There's a feature that's got, it's like there, okay. You've got sort of a pyramid on one half.
This right here?
Can you describe that and describe the difference?
So you can see that it is on both of them. This one is a lot smaller. But what it is, so this is basically 2 banks These are banks separated by little gaps, so you can use this multiple ways. And then this ledge in between, if we go back here, you can kind of see it has this kind of almost a house shape to it. So what people would do is they can hit it on both sides, so they can do little tricks over this, just over this hip. We call this a hip. These two banks here. They can do tricks over this gap. They can also jump over the ledge. They can jump onto the ledge and grind or slide down it. So there's multiple ways that they can use this feature here. And it is in both concepts. One's just is bigger and provides, I guess you would say, more enjoyment than the other one.
Thank you.
I love the presentation. This is coming back, as I mentioned earlier, from the Services and Safety. Would you like to provide a summary of your meeting or make a motion?
I think I would like to make a motion at this time.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion that's slightly different, a little augmented from what's in the packet for this evening. I move to authorize submission of a $75,000 2015 King County Youth Sports Facilities Grant application for skate park construction in 2016 and pursue additional funding to allow building of the 10,500 square foot skate park design.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Discussion or questions? Ola.
So this is a topic that was near and dear to my heart. I had a goal in, I think, 2010, and then Councilmember Barber and I both had goals in, I think it was 2012, that we merged to come up with a goal that led to the conversation that we're having today. Gosh, almost 3 years ago. Funny how time flies. And this council has had a sustained interest in building a new skate park for a number of reasons related to interest in the community and public safety around the current location, and just having good amenities for our population. And this generated a lot of interest in the community, and I was for a while kind of concerned because I felt that some folks in the public didn't really understand. The council didn't really understand the details of the difference between the $500,000 park and the $350,000 park for a long time. And so I was a skeptic, and I said, look, is this really the difference between an awesome park and a super awesome park? Because of course everyone always loves super awesome more than awesome, right? Why not? But when we took a look at this in committee, I came away convinced that there were specific additional benefits around the $500,000 design, or let's say the 10,500 square foot design, because that's more clear. Around playable features, there's more for skaters to do around the stairs and the benches themselves. In the 10,500 square foot design are playable features. The textures that were alluded to that make for a better skating experience, the pole jam that we discussed, that funny thing, I still don't really think I know the name of it, but the half pyramid, half double ramp thing. Secondly, this is a sturdier design. It may be hard to see between the two designs, but the metal rails, a lot of the edges that the skaters would actually be using have longer metal edges on the areas that are intended to be used. This looks like that it'll result in lower maintenance. It's both more usable and has more lower maintenance and should last longer. And then I really particularly like the community pieces. You know, you see that Sammamish's skate park is really enjoyed by a lot of folks in the community who are watching their kids skate, and seeing those picnic tables, seeing the grand entrance at the front that's so welcoming, I think it, for me, makes a substantive enough difference that it's worth delaying, because of course, you know, we could go build the 8,600 square foot design this year, and delaying it a year, you want to make sure that that's worth doing, right? But I came away out of committee confident that this is the right move at this time, that there are enough substantive differences, that it's not just awesome versus super awesome, but that there are specific things that will make this a better park, and that's why I moved this motion this evening. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Pauley, followed by Councilmember Milligan.
Probably for Brian, I would guess, but when I look at the two cost estimates that were provided, on the last three categories are sort of the non-skate park ones, so site contract, amenities, and landscaping. And I wondered, when you decide whether or not a new park is gonna have planters, benches, picnic tables, are there park standards that you are referring to? And the reason I'm asking the question is, the parks, aside from the feature discussion that Councilmember March just had, there are big differences in the two bids, or in the two estimates, between whether or not there even are planters, or, you know, very similar sized park, but there's 3 benches in one and 7 in another. So what standards do we use when we're talking about amenities for parks?
Well, in this case, it's a matter of what the site can accommodate, given the space that you have. And with the 10,500 square foot version, we're going to be able to accommodate more amenities as far as the seating and viewing. Whereas with the smaller version, we just don't have the space to really incorporate that. With regards to the planters, the 10,500 square foot version, those planters are in a protected box around those trees. And they also have a component of them that are, where's that skatable part? You know what we're talking about? Yeah, it also includes it into the design where right here you have some skatable elements that are actually part of the protected planter boxes, whereas on the other one it's just at ground level.
I guess it's more of a general question. It shows on the one that we were going to have a park and we weren't going to have any planters at all. So would that?
And what those are referring to are basically these boxes around the tree. So that's, when it's referring to the planter, it's the actual concrete box that's kind of protects that tree. Whereas on the other design, these ones here, they're basically holes at grade. So kind of like how the trees are out there currently.
Okay, so we have landscaping.
Yes.
We just don't have planters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That was my question. Thanks.
Councilmember Milligan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Tola, for working on this some more. I think I've said it the same way every time. I've always wanted the 10,000 square foot park. You may not know, but I think I'm married to Walter Mitty, and he would want that. But the 10,000 square foot park price tag wasn't what the city wanted to pay for. So I do have a question about what the addition to the motion means, but I want to, before I give up the microphone, point out and leverage off what Councilmember Pauley said about those elements, the site concrete and the amenities. When you look at these details, man, those are expensive. Now, am I correct in assuming that these are skateboarder tough? Is that
Yeah,
why?
I mean,
Is
the
that what
idea
park
is
bench
this whole, one of the reasons we do the planters kind of up in this area is to kind of almost protect these viewing areas so they're not really skatable. Everything in here, the idea is everything in here, the benches are designed so they're basically metal benches. They're right now the ones we have kind of have a wire frame that runs so that basically it runs perpendicular to where someone would try to grind out of. So they're not really skatable. And then these picnic tables would be something really durable as well, metal or concrete. So if they do get skated, they're going to survive. But yes, the idea is everything around here that is a non-skate amenity is designed either to unskateable, or if it has a chance to be skated, it'll survive skateboarding.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That helps explain the price. And when I do look at these, and I thank you, Mary Lou, for bringing these out, these all seem to be elements that could be sponsored. And we've said before that not only was there county money that we could apply for, but perhaps there are corporate interests. And I bring it up again today because I still think it's worth going after. One of the things we want to do with the 10,000 square foot park is to make a regional draw. We want to be the place. We want to be seriously known for this skate park and the experts who will be there. And I think that will provide some visibility that could be worth something to somebody. So then I leave with the question then perhaps back to Councilmember Martz, what pursue additional funding means.
So it's my understanding that part of the King County Youth Sports Facilities Grant will be, the community needs to actually match, I think it's 9375. In the community actually needs to come up with it. So Councilmember Scher, who's not here this evening, one of the reasons why he wanted to come back with this bill is he's eager to see that community engagement and coming up with that 9375, because he believes, I think he said, the community should have some skin in the game. So when you look at it, you say, okay, right now there's, you know, if it's the difference between 350 and 500, that you've already got 85K of it just about squared away with this. There's also opportunities to engage in the community to get donations from the community. We know people nearby who have a quarry that maybe we could get involved. So that's part of it, and I guess I would ask the administration if they want to comment on other potential funding sources to close that gap. The other thing is, before I hand it back over to the administration, that's where also this thing in the end about engineering estimates versus low bids, right? There's nominally a 65K gap, but if you look at it, typically the bids come in sometimes quite a bit below the engineering estimates, so it may well be that when the actual bids come in, the gap may be very small, and so there may be lots of places where you could close the gap.
I guess I would comment and say I understand what pursue additional funding for a 10,500 square foot skateboard park means. It's sort of wide open. Anything that's legal would be fair game. Anything that is not would be a terrible mistake. So I like, the administration likes the additional phrase there and direction that you've included in the motion. Eileen, followed by Stacy.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been a supporter of this from the original concept back when Tola was discussing in regards to just simply a goal, a vision that we'd had. I believe this larger one is definitely more of what the city is in need of. We are a growing community, and it just doesn't seem to be slowing down as far as the growth coming to this area. I think we would not be doing justice to come in with the smaller skateboard park. I think we would find ourselves quickly in the same position we are now, that the facility we have is not meeting the city's needs. At committee, we went through a number of different pieces. We even started talking about, well, if we took out the picnic tables and we didn't put them in and we could bring them in on another date, we could take out other amenities and bring them back in later as the funds became available. And the more there was the discussion, it was like, we need to come forward and find the dollars. And there was a lot of conversation from a lot of the groups that came in and spoke that night in regards to some of the business can match some grants. They were talking about putting coin cans out in order to collect some nickels and dimes. So it's not just simply the city coming forward with this, but there is a very engaged population that is really interested in this and really wanting to come forward with a larger amenity. And I think it's our responsibility to come forward and help assist and make that happen. And so I'm definitely supporting this. I have for a long time, and I look forward to actually maybe getting a skateboard and trying this out.
Stacy?
I was going to comment on that, but I'm not sure I should. So 363,000 or 500,000, it's still a significant investment regardless of, you know, how much we spend. And I think it was at budget that I mentioned that if you're going to build something, you also want to build something that's going to last, still be relevant in a few years. So you want to build it with an eye toward the future. So tell me, do we achieve that with this skate park? Is this still going to be relevant in a few years, or are we going to say it should have been something else?
No, I mean, it really is. It's maximizing the site. It's something that's going to provide for your community and also, you know, serve as a regional draw. And it's the idea, kind of one of Grindline's core philosophies is really every park we do, we want them to be timeless. So it's something that you're going to enjoy on the day it opens, but also something you're going to go back and skate, you know, 10 years later, 15 years later, and still be challenged and interested in it.
And I'll add a little bit to that as well, because given the And you talk about interest in seeing something. You know, we have this, right here, we have that fence line that comes all the way down here. And it's, you know, that whole frontage for a potential art project and doing something that it really would pop right there on Newport Way. The Arts Commission has already committed to $40,000 for artwork at this skate park. So that's sort of exciting. That, I mean, not only the timelessness of the actual park itself, but it will be a really neat amenity as an entrance and an entrance to the park and what they can come up with as far as some artwork and design there. So we're excited about the opportunities working with the Arts Commission to see what that becomes in the future too. So that would be in addition to the park as well.
Thanks.
Council President Winterstein.
Thank you. Question for Brian and some comments. This bill authorizes application for the county grant, and I know the date is coming up for submittal. When are awardees notified?
End of the year? I'm
How
told by
end
our
of the
park
year?
planner for Jennifer Fink, yes.
Like December 31st or how end of the year? Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Fink, Park Planner. Applications are due June, I think it's June or July
Letter of intent's
19th?
May 1, right?
Yes, letter of intent is May 1st.
Right.
Mid-June is application deadline.
Okay, mid-June.
Interviews are September, fallish, early fall. And then award is usually at the end of the year. So we'd be in contract. We receive a contract if we get the grant come January, final signed usually by March. And then
Okay.
we have 2 years to spend the funds.
Okay, thank you for that. So, a couple of points. First, I want to make one point of clarification that Tola mentioned earlier. The bill does say that our existing appropriation already satisfies the requirements to match the grant. So, which makes sense. If we're appropriating $350 and that we have to match at least 75, I think we knocked that one out of the park. So I think that's just a clarification. But I think what's most important here is and here I want to speak to everybody in the audience who has this interest in the park, which, by the way, is absolutely fantastic. When outdoor recreation is the type of topic that brings this many stakeholders with passion and interest in our youth and in this community to a council meeting, that's a good sign. I absolutely love this, and thank you all for your participation. But I think it's very important that we understand where we are, what this represents, and how we will proceed from here if this bill passes. This is simply authorization for Parks Department to apply for a grant and proposing, this, and I imagine this information and the city's existing funds we've put forward to this to be part of that application. But from there, we just learned that we wouldn't even learn until the end of the year, which is really after our budget process is already complete. The mayor and the administration is going to be proposing a budget for 2016. And at that point, we won't even know where we stand on this grant. It just will be too preliminary. So this council will be asked again within the budget for 2016, I assume. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But I assume that we'll have to go through the budget process again, and there will be some appropriation, that word meaning the council being authorized the spending for a specific use. In this case, we've already appropriated for spending in 2015, $350,000 for a skate park. But if that expires, and we don't spend it in 2015, we'll have to reappropriate it for next year. And now I'm hearing that the money, if we get a grant, we won't know until kind of after the budget process. So there's going to be the timelines don't line up perfectly. We'll have to make another decision on an amount, then we're going to find out about the grant, then we're going to find out what else we're going to do legally, as the mayor so elegantly described to us. I wouldn't suggest anything other than that. So I hope that makes sense. So this is not a final up or down on the skate park tonight. What it is a really clear indication to me prior to a vote that there's a lot of support even on this council, and the majority of whom will still be here next year because there's an election this year. So this is not the end. There will be a number of other times when it comes in front of the council, And this is just the way it works. When you're responsible for public money, there's a lot of safeguards and necessary processes in place to make sure we're using it wisely. And this is the form in which that happens. And it happens, unfortunately, on these timelines. It would be great if we could wave a wand and make a difference, right away tomorrow. But we've chosen a path which takes us to the county to apply for a grant. And we heard about the timeline and what that means. And so we'll see. I mean, it's a competitive thing. We've run grants before. We've realized the benefits. The county recognizes this community and our commitment to outdoor recreation. And so I hope that will, play in our benefit. But, we don't know. We have no idea whether and how we're going to do, but I'm sure, and I have no doubt that Brian and the rest of the staff in Parks will do their usual great job in that application. So I hope that's helpful. Tonight, all we're doing is saying, please go apply for the grant. And then downstream from now, we'll hear more about it. We'll hear more about it in our budget process. We'll hear more about it, hopefully positive news in the early next year. And I don't know what that would mean, timing, if everything worked out, that we got the extra funds and, but March, is that soon enough if we chose to do something? Hopefully that is, but those are questions still to be answered, out in front of us. So I hope that's helpful. And one last comment. If my colleague on the council, Councilmember Barber, chooses to strap on a helmet and go into the park, I'll be right there with you.
Probably 911.
Elbow pads
No,
and knee pads
man,
too.
I'll put on a helmet. I'll go around the park as well. I'll have the camera. I'll have the GoPro on my helmet. I'll be shooting.
On that serious note, any other comments? Councilmember Martz.
Yeah, one last comment. I agree. I think it's important what Councilmember Winterstein said about how this is part of a process, and tonight is not, the final vote, and they all lived happily ever after. But I do think it's important, the additional language that we put in that, specifically this just authorizes going after the 75K. But I think it's important that the reason that I wanted the additional language is that it really says that our goal and our target is to get to that 10,500 square foot park, hopefully, that happens. So I think that giving the community and the administration clarity that we would like to see that, I think is an important part of this motion.
Other comments, or are you ready to act? All those in favor of authorizing submission of a $75,000 2015 King County Youth Sports Facility Grant application for skate park construction in 2016 and to pursue additional funding for a 10,500 square foot skateboard park signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that carries unanimously. Micah, Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next item is Agenda Bill 6997, Pool Renovation Project Update. A presentation this evening, and approaching the microphone is our facilities manager and project supervisor, Rick. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Rick Patterson. I'm the facilities maintenance manager for the Parks Department. I am here tonight with some of my coworkers, Director Ann McGill. Of course, you heard Brian Bernstein, our Deputy Director, and Jennifer Fink is here. Also, Ross Hoover and Casey Gear are both on our pool staff. So if any variety of questions come up, hopefully we can get those answered for you. So we're going to, during tonight's presentation, we're going to do a brief history of the pool renovation project. We'll touch on some of the construction methods used for the project and anticipated energy savings. We'll review some non-energy improvements. Then we'll see some interior photographs of the demolition, construction work, and some photos of the equipment and materials that will be in our finished pool. So for a little bit of the history on the project, in 2005, the city formed a Citizens Advisory Committee to review and discuss possible pool expansion and/or needed improvements to continue serving the citizens, the programs, and events that rely on Julius Bowen Pool to support their activities. In 2008, the City Council approved funding for an aquatics feasibility study. The study provided an in-depth analysis of the structural, mechanical, and safety systems of the pool. During the analysis, several items were identified as immediate issues in order to keep the facility operational until a more extensive renovation or new facility could be funded. In 2012, the City Council directed administration to consider funding options for park-related facilities and projects. The administration contracted with EMC Research to perform a telephone survey to assess attitudes and priorities for the parks, open space recreational facilities, and the renovation of Julius Bowen Pool. EMC Research performed the statistically valid telephone survey in June of 2012. The research identified that the city residents are supportive of making additional investments in Issaquah parks, facilities, natural areas, and the pool. The research and survey also revealed the city residents were supportive of placing the park bond on the ballot to fund these amenities. In 2013, the voters overwhelmingly approved a park bond measure that included $5 million for the pool renovation. And then in 2014, the city entered into an interagency agreement with the Washington State Department of Enterprise for performance contracting construction management services. It's ESPC, also known as Energy Services Performance Contracting for short. As part of the energy performance contracting process, the contractor conducted an energy audit of the building. This graph here shows the energy consumption during 4 consecutive years, and then the engineers developed a base design to determine potential savings. The estimated savings after the new equipment and controls are installed are shown in kilowatt hours for electrical and BTUs for natural gas, and then CCF for domestic water. Those numbers translate into an estimated savings of $71,000 annually at today's rates. The scope of work for this project was established with 3 main priorities. The first priority was reducing energy consumption at the pool. The second priority was improving access for those with disabilities by removing architectural barriers. And 3, improving the aesthetics of the facility. We reviewed over 200 comments that were received from patrons and staff, and here are just a few of the higher priority items that will be implemented in this project. As we mentioned, the ADA access, we'll be reconfiguring the main lobby and reception area, new pool plaster liner, the addition of new family changing rooms, and then an expanded women's dressing room, and then new lockers throughout all the locker rooms. So we'll kind of go over some of the demolition to start the project off. I'm sure you guys recognize the old pool stained plaster liner there. So when we started this project, one of the first things we did after draining the water, which is standard procedure, is test this plaster by doing some core samples. And our old original plaster tested positive for asbestos. So this required some special conditions to remove the plaster. And it required a special abatement contractor that's certified to do this work to come in and contain this whole area. And you can see this is a tenting system that they put up along with plastic along the edges of the pool, all taped in. So it's kind of like a giant surgery process here to get all this out and protect everything else around it. These other pictures are after about 2 weeks of chipping and rotor hammering the old surface off, which actually ended up being 3 surfaces. So the pool had been resurfaced twice over the original, which was a lot of layers. And then it was about this time that we discovered that there was a pin fastening system that was used, and a lot of the pins were embedded into the concrete, and some of them were being sheared off. We had to go back and pay special attention to all those to remove them. and this added about 5 or 6 weeks beyond what we had estimated for the demolition of the pool liner. And the next slide, you can kind of see, these are some of the pins that were sheared off and had to be individually chiseled out, and you can see they're kind of in a random pattern, but that was the entire surface of the pool, on the floor and the walls. So that was kind of a big challenge we had right out of the gate. One of the other challenge was that the original installers of the pool in the 1970s did such a good job prepping the surface that we couldn't break the bond between the old plaster and the new concrete basically the new plaster and new concrete from the original install. So there was extra labor involved in that because we had to get that plaster out. We couldn't leave remnants behind because it did have the asbestos in it. So it required us to really shave all the concrete off of those chipping hammers. So quite the project. Continuing with some demolition photos. You may not recognize these rooms in the condition that they are here in these photos, but this is the main lobby. Looking from the pool deck out to the front door, and you can see we have some heavy equipment that we brought in to kind of remove some of the concrete and break these sections out. Both these other photos are of the locker rooms. This is actually the women's shower area, and then the men's locker room going into the showers here, and then these sections have been cut out and they'll be loaded off-site and taken to a recycling facility. And this is the piece of equipment that we used. We butted that up to the locker room entrances and then had those large pieces of concrete hauled out to the tractor. This is an earlier stage demolition of the cashier's booth up in the main lobby there. And then this is kind of the backside area here that nobody really gets to see. It's the boiler room and the electrical room area. Just wanted to point out the dirt area there is cut out for a reason. That'll be a new concrete pour, and then this electrical will be cut out, and this will be cut out, and this will be the new access from the shower room to the deck for the men's locker room. And you can see it progressed a little bit there. So there's the electrical where the electrical was cut out, and then this is the now shower room access, and there'll be a new wall built right along here. This was the some weeks back, the very beginning of the construction phase, putting in the underground piping, the sewer liners, the venting, and all that. Again, in the deep end of the pool, the same thing. They're putting in all the new main drain systems for the pump to pull the water back to be heated and treated and then recircled again. This was just about 3 weeks ago. We finished the last pour of the slab concrete on the main floor, and again, there's the main lobby taking shape, and some electrical stub outs for the future reception desk that will go there. Some of you probably recognize the old patio picnic table area out front there. This is now what it looks like. Well, this is a few weeks ago. If you looked at it today, there's actually the cinder block walls have already been built up, and they're about 8 feet high or so right now. So the contractor is making really good progress at this time, and he has all hands on deck, from the electrical contractors to the cement guys to all the masonry guys. So everybody's up there, and they're doing a good job. This is our old deck surface, the exposed aggregate. It wasn't popular with a lot of the kids and their feet, kind of rough. So this is a new product that we found a few years back. It's actually a resin product that was designed for the food industry. So it was designed to be durable, slip resistant, and then cleanable. And those are ideal things that we look for a pool surface. And this is actually the surface up at Skyview Pool in North Bend. And so they put this system in 5 or 6 years ago, and we've been keeping in touch with them to see how they like it. The staff likes it, the patrons like it, and it's holding up really well. They were even able to cut into it and do some repairs and patch it where it was all seamless. So it's a good resin product. Our color is going to be a little bit different than this. The architects have selected a color scheme, and ours has kind of a little more speckles of some blue and some green that match with some other stuff in the building. Just kind of a contrasting photo of what we can expect to see with our new pool liner. This is another pool that was relined, and then, of course, the comparison of our old stained pool. One of the benefits of replacing all the piping that we have, we're pretty certain that all the staining we see in the pool is iron oxide, which is basically a residue from the iron pipes that are 40-plus years old and just failing and coming apart and scaling. So one of the things we did is cut out all those old sections of steel pipe, and all the new piping going into the supply lines for the pool is going to be ABS plastic. So it should alleviate the staining problem. The little bit of metal that we have in the system now is just, it's unavoidable. We have to have the pump housings and certain pieces of equipment. So we'll definitely minimize the exposure to the iron oxide staining. And then another contrast picture to some of our old equipment, which is a pneumatic-based, just air pressure system, definitely outdated and inefficient, with some of the new technology, which of course will be all digital control, computerized and electronics, and run a much tighter controls over everything and give us better air quality, better water treatment ability, and a cost savings in our chemical treatment programs. Again, another picture of some of the the new systems coming in. Our old air handler room with all the old equipment removed, and then these are the new modular systems that are being installed. This here is the large one for the natorium. This is the corner of the smaller one, which will do the locker rooms and the main lobby, and then some of the high efficiency variable frequency drive motors here for the fans. So the old fans ran on just one speed, stop and go to 100%. These can throttle down and save energy and only supply air as needed. One of the last places we got into was the acoustical treatment up on the ceiling in the main natorium. We noticed a couple of sags in the grid and did some inspecting and found some corroded wires and some other things that are just something you're going to find in a building this old. So we have to take all these tiles out to go through and add a supplemental anchoring. And so what we've discovered is a lot of these tiles are breaking, and it's not worth trying to salvage a few of these and then have them install new ones and have a checkerboard pattern. So we're going to get all new acoustical treatment in the ceiling and then go in and supplement the fastening that we have here. You can see some of the hooks and eyes there. So that's kind of a short rundown of where the pool is at now. Kind of wraps up our presentation. And we're looking at an estimated reopening date of late summer 2015. Any questions? Yeah.
Just if you could, Rick, how are we doing budget-wise?
We are on budget, and we still have some contingency. So the performance contracting program has worked well for us.
Good.
Yep.
Questions or comments? Councilmember Barber?
Well, that was the first of my questions, was the
Okay.
budget piece. But the second half was, you said we were 5 weeks behind because of the asbestos. Have we been able to make up that time?
We have made up some of that time. One of the first things we did, I mentioned about 2 weeks into that abatement, we basically tripled the workforce that went into the pool to delay anything further beyond 5 weeks. And we also started, the renovation team got together and worked directly with our DSD department and came up with a scope of work that we could come in and start doing before the permit was issued. So that picked up about 3 weeks again back on the project, because typically we would start that work after the permit is issued, and we worked with DSD so that there was a minimum scope of work that could be done. So we kept the project going.
So we should be pretty close to estimated time for...
Yeah, with this, we had a very aggressive schedule, so we did not have a lot of floating days going into this project. So those got eaten up pretty quick with that abatement, and then us only picking up about 3 of those 6 weeks. So it did still get pushed out 3 plus maybe weeks.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Other questions or comments? Mary Lou and then Paul.
I mean, thanks for asking those questions. I think those are always important to ask, especially on a renovation project, which can just sometimes end up being a nightmare. I had a question, but I think it's more for staff or for the mayor, and that is that it's very exciting to see the energy savings. When we see the draft 2016 budget, I'd kind of like it to be obvious where those savings are. So if there's an operational cost line for the pool, it'd be nice to see either have a notation that it's a deduction in operating costs from the previous year, or just be able to see where those savings are realized in the budget document.
We'll do the best we can to highlight that information. Paul?
Thank you. So I'm going through a renovation right now, and the plumbers were in on Friday, and Friday night, and then again on Saturday morning, I found leaks. So, and so, yeah, guess what? A little bit more time, a little bit more money, and so you named a number of things, and just tell me. I just want to understand. It's amazing to hear that a project this complexity and with you just talked about extra resources. You found you had to do the abatement, and you talked about the pins in the ceiling and the really tightly bonded concrete.
Right.
And how is it that we're staying on budget? I mean, there must be a good story behind that.
Well, you definitely want to go into a project like this with a contingency. So we went into this with our contingency a little less than 10% of the total project amount. We've used a portion of that contingency to cover some of these surprises. Some of the benefits of doing this performance contracting is that the contractor has a scope of work, and within that scope of work, he's guaranteed a maximum amount. He's guaranteed us a maximum amount of what it's going to cost. The abatement delays that we experienced and the extra staffing required and time to take care of that, it produced a $125,000 change order that the contractor was required to cover, not the city. And that was covered under the guaranteed maximum amount. So that was a big benefit we got for this program. There are some other smaller costs outside of the scope that the city did cover. So, and those were kind of more for cost savings purposes. Part of our contingency, we elected to handle and order the lockers for the pool to avoid just the markup that the contractor would have. So.
Okay. And one other question.
Yeah.
There are a lot of individuals and organizations within the community that are pretty dependent upon the pool, swim team, and the like. So how has this been the adjusted opening date? I mean,
well, we've been in
how have we been
contact
able to
with the
handle
swim
that?
team. So we met with them probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Three, yeah. So we met with the swim team folks so that they could line their programs up, and we kind of shared this with them about where we are so they can cover their programs in anticipation of our reopening. So I think we're coordinating with them so that nobody is left out.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure you've been in communication. I just want to hear a little bit more about it because, it's hardship. There's not very many pools around here, and everybody's really bending over backwards to accommodate, the families, the children, and even the adults who swim and practice and compete. So every extra week or month that goes by, has an impact.
Absolutely.
And I would totally expect, as you said, that you've been working closely with them.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Rick, thank you very, very much.
Okay. Thank you,
Rick.
Moving to our last item under regular business, Agenda Bill 6980, Annual Board/Commission Appointments. Briefly, the recruiting process began in January. In accordance with council policy, each board and commission established an interview team, scheduled and conducted interviews, and prepared its recommendation for my review. The mayor is responsible for appointing members to boards and commissions and to ensure an equitable balance of interest and expertise as represented on all advisory bodies at the time reappointments are considered. Following our approval or action on this agenda bill, each of the committees we will prepare letters for each applicant advising him or her of the outcome, and staff liaisons will make contact with the appointees to welcome them to their assignments. With that, I would ask your pleasure, or if there are questions on the annual board and commission appointments. Councilmember and President Winterstein.
I don't have any questions, so I'm going to make a motion so we can discuss the matter. I move that we confirm the board commission appointments as presented in Agenda Bill 6980.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Council President Winterstein.
I was under the impression we're going to interview each one of them tonight. Where are they?
They are over in the Eagle Room, waiting
Okay.
your arrival.
Send them on in. Yeah, local government is very dependent. We are very dependent upon the volunteers that step up and give of their time and their energy and give up their time and energy for other purposes to participate in these boards and commissions. And oftentimes we have interested parties and individuals that show up here at these council chambers, and they wonder how things got to us at the legislative making body, but so often it's items are going through citizen commissions and boards, and that's an essential part for effective, good governance. It's an essential part for good outcomes and for the running of the city. So I'm extremely grateful for everybody who spends 1 minute of their private, precious time to give to public service on these boards and commissions. It's a really good, I'm speaking to the choir up here, but it's a very good place, as we all know, for people to become familiar with the topics, with subjects, to apply their skills and their interests and their passions in ways that they can help the city and become more familiar with the operations of the city and how we actually get things done and to contribute to that process. It's really essential to a well-running city. So I'm very, very grateful. I read every resume, scanned every resume. A lot of really excellent, qualified individuals. All of you that did apply, all of you waiting over in the Eagle Room that did apply, I'm very grateful for your application, for those that applied and maybe didn't get selected this time. There's opportunities every year. People move on, different opportunities open up, so I would ask that you consider it again. Because it really is also, I'll just finish by saying, it truly is motivational to me. When I see others stepping up and saying, this is important, I'm putting my time in, I want to make a difference, it's a lot easier to put in the time that we have to do up here on council because it's motivating, it's uplifting. So I'm grateful, and thanks to the staff and all the work that you guys, Fred, your administration did do to bring it to this point. I'm looking forward to impaneling a whole new set of council or committee and board members starting on May 1st.
Thank you. Other comments before you act? Seeing none, then, all those in favor of confirming board/commission appointments as presented in Agenda Bill 6980 signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That carries unanimously. Moving now to good of the order. Any council members with good of the order this evening? Councilmember Milligan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think all of you read my letter to the editor last week where I reported to the greater community. I'd spoken with each of you individually in advance about not running for office next year, and I'm taking another opportunity now to give a shout out to those people who are on commissions and boards or other people I have interest in serving. I've served in both places now, and I've enjoyed them both. And don't forget, it's not like I'm giving my notice today. We still have the rest of 2015 to have a heck of a lot of fun. But the application period for applying as a candidate fast approaches at the end of April and the early part of May, and you can find the information on the King County Elections website.
Thank you. Anyone else for good of the order? Council President Winterstein.
I wanted to mention that for tomorrow and for tomorrow only, I have a one-day honorary membership in the American Planners Association. You may not know, I'm sure maybe you forgot to put it on your calendar, but the National Conference for the American Planners Association started this weekend in Seattle, running through tomorrow. And I will be joining Art Sullivan from Arch, along with the current planning director, get his name here in a moment, Rob Odell from the City of Redmond. He's the Planning and Community Development Director. And Rich Conrad, former city manager for the city of Mercer Island, and along with myself and Art Sullivan, will be presenting tomorrow at 9:30 at the American Planners Association's National Conference down in Seattle at the Convention Center. And the title is How Smaller Jurisdictions Create Affordable Housing. That's session 601 if you're trying to make up your schedule. And, it really is pretty interesting. We hear about ARCH and we hear about affordable housing issues. These gentlemen played a big role in the formation of ARCH from the beginning. And I'm a real kind of a semi-serious student about forms of governance. And this is a regional committee with 15, regional coalition with 15 participating jurisdictions. And a fascinating, at least to me, effective form of governance. Even though they're not an official organization, they're really, this is a service group is really what they are. But I just want to let you know so that if anybody wants to get tickets to the events, there are still available seats.
Thank you. Anyone else for good of the order? Well, as I announced, there is no need for an executive session this evening, and we are adjourned. That's great. Good opportunity.
Oh, it's